you are crushing the upfront process, making the calls, generating the opportunities, having the conversations. You're doing a good job. And I don't want to spend too much time on what you're already doing well. I want to talk about where there's a missing gap. So now that you've generated the opportunity, let's just even take Jacksonville as an example. This is a deal that we both know I think is fairly lucrative. There's an opportunity for us to make some money. Obviously, we're in a maybe of a tight window because they're open to the idea of the listing, and we're trying to get it done in a quicker time frame. But ignore time frame for a moment. You got a deal from a seller, open to the idea of selling. The only thing I also want to mention with Jacksonville, which makes it a little uncomfortable, is that you're working through another broker, correct?
Yeah, sadly.
So I'm just saying, like, obviously, in that instance, it does make it a little bit more complicated to get to the next step because we don't have the control that we look for most of the time. And plus, our compensation will instantly be lower. But overall, the fundamentals, you have a seller lead, which we both think we can sell, okay, which is at a fair and reasonable price. So obviously, even just like the Carolina deals, this is not only because this is like right after you've generated the lead. I'm picking it up from here, which is they've countered us at a price in which they are, like from our starter offer, they've countered us at a price in which they would consider selling. Now, let's talk about this process. Immediately, as soon as they give us a counter, we're going to do our numbers again, and we're going to try to gauge the likelihood of us being able to transact at this number. As an example, Carolina's very low likelihood of trading at $14 million. We're probably going to be having to trade it somewhere near half that number. Right? Somewhere in that vicinity. Jacksonville, as an example, that number is much more attractive, and we do believe there's some ability for us to transact at current price. Because these are two different pathways. They countered us at a price like North Carolina where they're 50% plus. What we're going to do here is that we're going to have to make another starter offer, a second starter offer, and move this process quickly because what we're realizing that 14 makes absolutely no sense, and we can come back at, we said 6 or 7 or something like that, and we can come up to doing 7,250, 6,750, whatever number is a little bit higher than our initial starter offer because the 14 is not even in a world where we're going to be anywhere near close to it. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a seller to a place in which we know we can transact. Or at least there's some decent likelihood of doing so. Now, let's just say we get to a place like Jacksonville where we believe there is a place we can transact at the price they've countered at us at. Okay, so now you know if you got a lead, we continue to starter offer the fuck out of them until they get to a price where we now believe we can transact. If you'd like to, these is also in that period of time, you can also go to a couple of VIPs, buyer-wise, and kind of get some feedback similar to what you've done. Okay, that's all kosher, smart moves. You're getting some feedback quickly. Okay? The point is just not spending time on the people who are out of their fucking mind, have no need to sell, don't want to sell, and they're just kind of bullshitting with us. Now we're at a seller who wants to sell, and it's at a fair and reasonable price. We have interest, and we're sort of in a range where we think we can execute. Next steps is to get all information we possibly can from the seller in order to support our buyers, our true buyers, right, in making a decision. Because you have to realize I might be one of the only investors you ever meet where I don't need all the information to draft a letter of intent. It doesn't scare me. I don't really give a fuck. It basically has as much value as a napkin. Okay.
Yeah.
However, most investors, especially seasoned guys who are much, much bigger than me, right? They're not going to just do a blank LOI, like not knowing information. All right. I'm willing to do that because I know that it doesn't mean much. And to me, it's a strategic thing about negotiating where I'm willing to burn my name because it hurts reputation. If you find a property that's worth $20 million and the guy's sophisticated and I offer the guy $6 million, it burns my name. Like he's going to think I'm fucking stupid. I just don't. Yeah. I'm okay with him thinking I'm stupid. Doesn't really matter. There's 78 other people that we can bring the deal to after me.
Yep.
Right. But these other larger companies, these family offices that we're talking to, these funds, don't want to burn their reputation. So like that's why they want more information so that they can come up with a true legitimate letter of intent where they feel comfortable at a price where they're not going to have to renege or look stupid. Just like Jacksonville where we need a rent roll, you need to be in the mindset of we need these docs way sooner in the process. The faster we can get, like, okay, ready? You're doing mainly industrial right now. What do you think a seller needs? What do you think a buyer needs in order to make a decision? What do they document-wise?
Rent roll, T12, leases, profit and loss statement for the last 3 to 5 years.
Amazing. Okay, cool. And you can even do profit and loss statement from last year, and that's probably fine. If they don't have a T12, that's also okay, and we can work on other things, right? So realistically, a rent roll and ideas of the leases. I mean, look, some of them are not going to send you leases ahead of time, but just some detail about the leases in the rent roll. Triple net, gross, modified, whatever the fuck it is, however they're paying rent. A rent roll in a P&L is enough, as long as the rent roll also explains the type of lease that is in place and if there's any rent bumps or extensions. That's it. We can get away with from a fund, obviously getting copies of all the leases, getting a T12, and then tax returns or multiple years of P&Ls would be really fucking helpful. But you don't even need it. Minimum base stuff we need, a full-blown rent roll, again, breaking down every lease, every extension, every lease bump, and every and the detail of how the payment's made, triple net, single net, double net, or gross modified. We need to know what the fuck that is. That and a P&L is enough. Just getting those two docs is going to allow an investor to at least make some type of decision, knowing that we can get more documentation through due diligence. Now, obviously, if you can get more, spectacular. It's not necessary 100% in order to just get a letter of intent out the door. So I need you to just think about it in the fact that like we've burned however many days between, obviously the guy's been on vacation and this, it's not your fault, right?
Yeah.
But every day that we don't get a rent roll and all these details, we are burning time. So we are making it still difficult for these investors to then get to the next step. So what I try to do is you want to just make sure you set expectations with your seller and say, listen, I think I can get you that price, but I need X, Y, and Z from you. How soon do you think I can count on you to get X, Y, and Z to me? Because what I want us to do is realize that time kills all deals, and the speed in which we can get from the price we know that a seller will transact on, all the documentation that we need in order to get that offer, then get that offer and then negotiate that period, that contract, and then get it into contract and acceptance. That period of time needs to be like this, because the more time you stack in it, the more you have a likelihood of it not working out. So the more we can condense those timeframes, the odds of us getting a contract accepted is substantially higher. So now that we talked about documents, what they need, what we're looking for, I want us to talk about the next step, which is when you're working with these buyers. So the entire idea of when you're working with these buyers, which again, you're doing a good job at cultivating them, now it's getting them to draft an offer. Because I want you to think about how many true offers from legitimate buyers have you done, like even year to date?
So year to date, I've probably had 4 or 5 from real true buyers that are you and like some of the people
Awesome. So tell me about that process though. So you got them to draft an offer. Wonderful.
Yeah.
What happened next?
So then I presented to the seller. The seller's like, hey, this is too far for me, but give me some time. I'll kind of think about it. And then they kind of fall off the face of the earth. Like I'll call, I'll try to follow up. They won't pick up my calls anymore. There was one time I had an offer. I had a full price offer for the guy, right? The guy asked for $3 million. I got him $3 million. And then he was like, well, I don't think I want to sell anymore. Like, I don't know what I would 1031 into. And then we present him with 1031 options. Of course, he doesn't like any of them, and he just kind of runs off.
What I want you to think about is I want you to draft 5 a week. Because 5 in the last 100 days of this year, it's just not enough just for you to see a conversion that's good, that will get you to where you want to be financially. So, which is why I stress so much about generating new business, because the goal here is saying like, hey, like the more offers you can get, which is like obviously on one lead, you can get several offers on one, but then obviously once you have 10 or 20 leads or 50 or 100 active opportunities that are worth actually trying to sell to these investors, then you can get dozens of offers on any one of these deals, right? So then generating 5 offers a week is not that difficult. We're talking about one a day. Because I think what will happen is that you'll see that everything that has occurred year to date with those deals is completely normal. But you would have avoided the same issue if you would have pre-negotiated up front, maybe a little bit better. And then working with those buyers that made those offers is better negotiating with them to come up in price. Okay. Which, by the way, I want to be very clear. Like, obviously, you have the ability to work with me on every one of these, and I can help you negotiate all these deals to make sure that, like, hey, if you want, we can go back to all those deals, every one of those buyers and every one of those sellers, and we can try to help you negotiate them right now if you want. So if you want to set up calls or anything like that, just keeping me in mind, like we can absolutely just try to get back to those deals and see if we can try to work on any type of negotiations and see if we can get them back to the table.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I want us to work on is obviously we're going to generate more leads. You're doing great. I want us to get to at least 1 lead a day. 2, if necessary, we need to be quick and keep me updated during our daily calls. Anything that you need a second starter offer on, hey, they countered at X, let's go at Y. Right, we need to come back at a new number. Just consult me. We can do tons of those every day. Next is now the process in which you are now putting this in front of a couple of, the next is the documents, making sure on the certain deals that you need to get documents much quicker so we can close that time frame. Next is the amount of buyers that you're speaking to on a regular basis, right? You got your lead generation in the morning, you're pitching deals in the afternoon. I will help you anytime necessary where you feel like a buyer is close to making a decision. You can get me on the phone anytime you need, and we can try to negotiate with that buyer to try to get him to come with something to the table. Because what I don't want to see is the only reason why anybody isn't closing more deals who's in your shoes. The only reason, okay, where you're generating a bunch of leads and you have submitted 5 offers right now and nothing's occurred, is you have not made enough true offers and spoken to enough true buyers that are willing to come to the table at a fair and reasonable price, right? I'm ignoring the idea of the thought that the leads were at a decent price or not. Because if anybody generates a number of leads that are all reasonably priced, we will sell them if they are presented to enough buyers who make enough offers every time. So the only reason why you're not transacting more is the lack of more leads and the lack of more local, seasoned, active buyers who are ready to buy that type of product. That's it.